How disappointing. Douglas frowned at his sergeant, feeling somewhat cheated. The final red line to splash across the ensign's back came without the accompanying crack of the whip. The howling wind ripping through their camp had carried the satisfying sound off to God's know where and left Douglas to fill the void with naught but his imagination. Well, that simply won't do. "Give him one more, Sergeant," he said, straining over the gale. "If I don't hear it, it doesn't count." The sergeant snapped his head round and squinted at him with those detestable piggy eyes. They were always watery and red and never quite managed to meet his own. They were weak eyes. "You say something, sir," he screeched back, whip dangling limp in his hand. "I said if I can't hit... Just whip him again, damn you! You bloody degenerate knuckle-dragging swine." Douglas smiled. He could have said it out loud, of course, but it would hardly be fitting for a man of his station. The sergeant blinked at him, sighed, and swaggered over in that way that low-ranking officers tend to do. Douglas rolled his eyes, but he wasn't sure the sergeant had seen through all his watery squinting. So he rolled them again, and added a sigh for greater effect. The sergeant was even uglier up close than Douglas had remembered. Old, certainly, but he found it hard to imagine the weak-eyed, pock-marked oaf had ever been considered handsome. The man showed his yellow teeth in what might have been a smile, but could just as easily have been the prelude to a sneeze. He opened his mouth to speak and quickly snapped it shut again at seeing Douglas's raised eyebrow. He stiffly stood to attention, sucking in his gut and puffing out his chest. Douglas knew that at the slightest nod from him, the sergeant would exhale and slump back into indecency. So Douglas waited, feeling the corners of his mouth twitch up a fraction. "I wonder what would happen. How long can you stand up straight like a real man these days?" Douglas smirked at the thought of keeping him there all night. Finally he nodded, and the sergeant blew out his wheezing breath. "Sir," he half-coughed, "the standard lash count for sleeping while on watch is 6, sir." Douglas rolled his eyes, sighed, and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "I thought we were past this." "Remind me, Sergeant," he said like a disappointed father to a troublesome child, "how many lashes are standard for, say, insubordination?" The sergeant removed his cap and pushed back what was left of his greasy yellow hair with one dirty hand. He barely looks Angelite at all. Perhaps an inquest into his lineage. "Well, no, sir, I don't think—" "No," snapped Douglas. "You're quite right. You don't think. I think, then I speak, then you obey. How many lashes, Sergeant?" His eyes darted about frantically, just barely avoiding Douglas's own icy blue gaze. "It's, not lashes, sir. It's, hanging." The sergeant whispered the word and looked down at his feet. Douglas smiled and threw his arms wide, his own straight white teeth gleaming even in the darkening evening. "Well, there you have it. You have an order. You can follow it like a good little simpleton, or if you prefer to follow the standard procedure—" No, sir, I hear you, loud and clear. Just the one extra lash, was it?" "Indeed it was," smirked Douglas. "That will be all, Sergeant." "Of course." The sergeant turned to go, quickly realised his mistake, and almost tripped over himself, turning hastily back round to salute. "Inquester Fine. An honour as always." Inquester Douglas Fine was already striding away towards his tent, all concern for lashings forgotten.